Hey guys, welcome to the Detour Live. I'm back. I had a day off yesterday. Well, I was looking after the kids and they had gastro, so that wasn't fun and pushing buttons. It was chaos behind the scenes. And Iffy, unfortunately, is not on tonight. He's sick again, so thoughts are with Iffy. But we've got, as always, Olympic gold medalist and Olympic commentator Scotty McGrory, Tour de France, a Giro commentator, and the Vuelta. Matthew Keenan, guys, what a cracker of a stage. I was sitting back watching it thinking, oh, well, here we go. You know, what's going to happen? Then when old Yatesy attacked and Bernard couldn't hold the wheels, I mean, I jumped up out of my seat at 1:30 in the morning. I mean, what was it like for you in the commentary box, Keenan?
Scott will get this. So leading into yesterday's stage, you're thinking, how do we put a spin on this and sell the message that the Giro is still alive? And Romain Bardet comes out with a quote that says, there's 6 guys fighting for 2 spots on the podium. There's 3 spots on the podium. So even Romain Bardet, he figures it's all over. Bernal's got this stitched up. And then when I saw BikeExchang chasing, I thought, oh, they're pretty keen on Yatesy for the stage victory. This race is not over. And Scotty, at the start of the stage yesterday, I thought I was just trying to sell that the race is still open. It's not over until Milan. And now I went to bed last night knowing it actually isn't over. Yatesy is in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally understand what you're saying. I go back to 2012 World Championships on the track. You and I were commentating, and the host, Mike Tomalaris, was hosting. And we had Geraint Thomas, who was making a comeback to the track just to prepare for the Olympic Games in the team pursuit. And Paris-Roubaix was on the same weekend as the individual pursuit was happening in Melbourne. And we'd finish our commentary talking up, as we are, you know, excited about Geraint Thomas being back, and it's all about the Olympics, go back to the hosting. And Tomo was asking the question, why is Geraint even here? He should be racing Paris-Roubaix. And I'm in commentary thinking, Mike, you're telling our live audience that they might as well not be watching because there's another race on the other side of the world that's more important. I'm thinking, mate, you don't quite get it. Geraint wants to go to the Olympics, and we're going to talk it up anyway. But that sort of reminds me of that. You're trying to talk up something that you're not sure if it's going to be a good outcome or not. In this case, it's going to be a fantastic outcome. Yeah, he's got a bit of work to do, hasn't he? So he's still a few minutes behind, over 3 minutes behind, but it did finally show a crack in Egan Bernal, which no one expected.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, hang on. I have to cut you off. John Trevorrow has been very much like this famous scene from one of my favorite movies.
Oh, here we go.
You're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
That is iffy. That is iffy. It might be 1 in a million at one point there, but that has been John the whole way. And when he's gone, hey, fellas, there's a lot of bike races to go. Yatesy, I'm telling you, we're like,
I know.
We love your optimism, but jeez.
But you know, that's just bias. That's just bias. Like, John, if that was any other rider, he wouldn't be talking him up. It's because it's Simon. It's because it's BikeExchang. He's so well connected to Jerry and the team that he's going to just keep talking him up until there's no more tomorrow. And he was right in the end.
The mascot was right. But in terms of how genuine it is at this year's Giro, so cast your mind back to 2018. Nobody needs to remind Simon Yates. There was a little crack. He lost about 30 seconds or something like that one day. And Matt White was just trying to polish over it. And he said, oh, no, it was just a little blip. No problem. He'll bounce back from this. And then on stage 18, when Froome went on a rampage, Yates lost more than a half an hour. The crack really opened up. And then cast your mind back to the Tour last year. Egan Bernal looked okay early. And then as soon as the crack opened up, there was no glossing back over it, and he completely exploded. There is a chance he won't recover, and that they'd love another mountain stage today, BikeExchang. But the next couple of days in the mountains on Friday and Saturday nights, our time, they're big days, and they can cause some serious damage.
Scooter?
Hey, Dan, you've got, to back Keen up there, you've got some interesting takes. You've got your scenarios on.
Oh, I've got scenarios, yeah. I was going to present them to White. Do I wait for Whitey or do I just... Oh, I'll rattle them off now. I reckon there's 4 things that could have happened. 1, he had a bad day. You know, just didn't have the legs. 2, his back is no good. So they went into the tour, the Giro, saying he could have some back issues. You've had the rest day. When you don't sort of sweat and get into that routine, you can start seizing up. I mean, I'm at that sort of age now where my back can give out, if I haven't done anything for a couple of days. Number 3, he's that far in front when Yatesy went and they knew that it was going to be the steepest climb. It's like, mate, I've got a few minutes to play with here. There's no stress. But
I'm going to eliminate number 3.
Well,
Dan,
that theory's debunked with this photo.
3. Yes.
That doesn't look like a guy that's like, she's all good, mate. I've got minutes to play with here. That is panic station to his teammate there.
That's Mark asking him, how many minutes have we got again? No.
Or is it scenario 4? Yatesy's been snaking this whole Giro. Okay, he definitely had a bad day the other day, but he's riding it completely different to 2018. Whitey always went in with a plan where it's like, don't put him into the red and build up for that last week. And if that's the case, stage 19 and 20, hold on to your hats, because if he's going and he's going better than everyone else because he hasn't had to go into the red as much, as you said, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So it's unbelievable.
Dan, I'm buying the combination pack. I want a little bit of scenario 1, 2, and 4. You can throw out number 3. That's just garbage. But in the Bay Marie, I'm getting a combo pack of 1.
Definitely throw out 3.
2, definitely throw out 3. Absolutely. 3, I don't know how you came up with 3. That's ridiculous.
I just needed to fill the list. When you sort of do a list, you want sort of 4 minimum.
No.
But
you don't want unnecessary things on your to-do list.
But if his back is playing up, I mean, you get to the TT, and Scooter and I were talking about this off air. I mean, the amount of torque, that's going to cause big issues. If you're sort of sitting up with back issues, you can mask it to a certain extent. But if you're on a TT, I mean, that's where, you must be in a world of hurt.
At their best, they're really even in the time trial. In the first individual time trial, which was less than 9 Ks, admittedly, they were separated by 1 second, and Simon Yates was slightly quicker than Barnal. Barnal can time trial, but so can Simon Yates. It was in Paris-Nice, I think, 2 years ago or thereabouts. He put in a really strong individual time trial. And as history tells us, if an athlete has the leader's jersey on their shoulders or the prospect of the leader's jersey, they can find a little extra. Don't know why. There's no explanation for it. It's something that science can't resolve, but they do.
Yeah, they're head-to-head with them. I think they've only actually raced each other in individual time trials 4 times, and it's 2 for 2.
Oh, perfect. How's that for a commentator's dream?
Yeah, 2 for 2. And when you break it down from each of those races, there was the first stage of the Giro this year. They were both way down, 53rd and 60th or something around that, right? So not a big difference, but they were fairly down the classification. Paris-Nice, you mentioned, Simon Yates won that one, and Barnal was 6th, so still pretty close between them. You go back to the Tour de France a couple of years ago as well. I think that was the one where Simon was a long way down compared to Barnal, but Simon wasn't going there to try and win overall, I don't think, that particular year. So he might have taken it a little bit easier. So it's, I think Simon still needs a bit of time, perhaps on Barnal before the time trial, but 2 for 2, he's won twice, so there is a chance.
Oh, you're telling me there's a chance, Dan.
Yeah. Ken, I've got a question for you. So they've taken out the first climb now because of the cable car incident for stage 19. How decisive is that going to be, given that all the teams are going to want to be testing Ineos, given what they saw with Barnal? I mean, they're not going to be putting along and keeping it together, will they?
Well, what I think that will do is, given that it's going to be predominantly flat for the first part of the stage until they hit what is the second climb on that graphic, I think it's just going to make the stage more aggressive. And we're going to see more riders try and get themselves into breakaways. And we've seen that aggression yesterday, even early on. We ended up seeing Egan Bernal get isolated. He'd love to have Pavel Sivakov still in this race with him. I think that taking that Category 1 climb out, you just have to change the strategy. The outcome can be pretty much the same, and it's a case of racing more aggressively. Whereas on a climb like that, I think that Ineos, with a guy like Filippo Ganna and also Gianni Moscon, they could actually be a little bit more controlling, but it's hard to control it when it's not up a major mountain. I'm looking forward to the stage.
Yeah, 100%. And then obviously we've talked about it for the last couple of days, but that's stage 20. I mean, if you've got any sort of form or any niggles, or, you're not feeling 100%, I mean, you're talking massive time gaps, yeah.
Oh, Scotty, how would you like to be one of the sprinters in this race, just trying to survive to get through to Milan. There's not even a sprint stage after this. They have to ride an individual time trial. They're just trying to finish the Giro and perhaps Peter Sagan and win the points classification. And you don't want to look at the road book and see that.
I've said that a couple of times about the end of this Giro for the sprinters, and even so on the day that they took out the two big climbs in the snow. I mentioned the next days. Look, that was a filthy stage, etc. for everybody. But just think of the sprinters, the riders that are taking another hour or 45 minutes to complete a stage like that normally. That would have been absolutely agonisingly painful, brutal, hypothermia. The guys at the front, they're racing flat out. They're going to be pretty well looked after and covered. But it would have been the guys at the back that would have been big trouble that day. And this is going to be the same. It doesn't matter about the weather on this particular one. It's what's the reason for it? You don't begrudge riders like Caleb and Robbie in the past and the pure sprinters that pull out of the Giro because, well, what's the point in hanging on if they're still going to ride the Tour de France or something afterwards, or even if it's the Olympics they're going to start preparing for? Not a lot of point in really just trudging through these last couple of days when it's as tough as that. That's a filthy stage, isn't it, for a penultimate stage of a tour? Totally.
Yeah, and the gap between the Tour this year and the Giro is tighter than ever because of the shifting in the calendar to allow for the Olympic Games. And you look at the Criterium de Dauphiné this year, its first stage overlaps with the final day of the Giro d'Italia. Everybody's just trying to squeeze stuff in to cater for the Olympics.
And hopefully the Olympics will go ahead. That's the next thing.
What did you got anything to tell us?
Sorry?
Got anything to tell us?
No. As far as I'm concerned, I'm playing ahead. But and look, we know that the IOC are absolutely desperate, and that's not just because they want to put it together and make sure it goes ahead. They need to financially. They absolutely must get this thing up and going because it will be crippling for them financially. There'll be, three people, and a guide dog looking after the IOC after this if the Olympics is cancelled again.
But aren't they like FIFA? Haven't they got a slush fund?
Maybe. But I wonder what it's like for the Japanese government. The Japanese government, they're going to want to win the PR battle. And what's more important to the Japanese government? Is it the Olympic Games or winning the next election? And they'll weigh up how the Olympics can influence that. And they've got to make the right decision for Japan as a community. It's massive. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it will go ahead. I do think it will go ahead, Scott. But what a strange experience it would be. Could you imagine if that was your only Olympic experience and not getting to do the closing ceremony, not getting to do the food hall and all those sorts of things? It'd be weird.
Or even the racing. So the road racing's, obviously they won't have crowds for that, but you'll have these incredible scenes of Mount Fuji in the background. It'll be amazing. But the Olympic velodrome, and one of the highlights of actually even the 2012 World Championships when Cameron Meyer won the points race in that last lap that he took, he only gained a lap on the field with 2 laps to go. That was incredible atmosphere in the velodrome at Melbourne. But 2012, watching Sir Chris Hoy win the Kirin on his home track in front of a home crowd, it's just spine-tingling stuff. It was amazing. And we won't have any of that. Like those riders just will not have that. It'll be just like a training track for a lot of them, which, I guess the ones that have been stuck in lockdown for so long, it won't be that different to the way they've been training for the last year and a half. But certainly going to be very strange.
You'd be fine with it. It'd be just like being back at Budkin. What would be totally bizarre would be the 100-metre final athletics for the men and the women without a crowd.
Oh, that'd be
Blue
scary.
Event. Yeah.
That is the Olympics. That defines the Olympics, that event.
I was just thinking
we're
then,
going to talk about bike racing?
Well, Whitey said he was going to be on at 7 o'clock. I'm thinking, he's normally on the dot, but I've sent him the wrong link. I sent him the YouTube link to that Dumb and Dumber clip instead of the StreamYard link. Yeah, and I'm thinking, what's he doing?
You may be offended by that.
Oh, no. So, hopefully it'll be on any second. We're also going to be chatting with Henk Vogels a bit later on. He'll share some classic Giro yarns. One hypothetical I want to give you, Keenan, is we've talked about how aggressive Barnal's raced, but, for what? He got 2 or 3 minutes. If he starts having to pay the bank in this last week, will there be a lot of questions at Ineos's end on how they raced the Giro to date?
I don't think so. I don't think they've made any mistakes. I don't think he's taken any massive risks in the way he's gone about gaining that time. He had to make the most of the stage that was shortened in the snow it was, there was 2 climbs less, 2 major climbs less. So he didn't take any huge risks there. And once it goes up towards 2,000 meters, he's got to really benefit from the fact that he grew up at more than 2,000 meters. So use the altitude. You've got to take the time when it's there to take. The other stage that he won, that finished on the gravel road just at the end, he launched his attack with around about 800 meters to go. Everybody else was on the limit as well. I don't think they've done anything outrageous in the way they've tried to take time, but eventually it can catch up with you, and it looks like it might be catching up with him. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens tomorrow, and hopefully you get Matt White on shortly, because I'd like to hear his thoughts on any potential scenario at the back end of today's stage, if there's any wind or anything along those lines, as to whether BikeExchang might look for another opportunity there.
And obviously the other news, yes.
One more point. And
yes,
would you rather be in front defending 2+ minutes to Caruso and over 3 minutes to Yates, or chasing it? I'd still rather be in Barnal's shoes defending a lead.
Yeah, and it's so far, like, he's lost. A failure for him was losing 50 seconds to Simon Yates, and nothing to the rider in second place. Virtually nothing, a couple of 2-3 seconds or whatever it was. So he's only lost 50 odd seconds just to Simon Yates, who was over 4 minutes behind before this stage. So it's not that bad. If it continues like this, okay, he's in big trouble. But if he can recoup and just at least follow Yatesy over the next couple of stages, then he's got it in the bag, hasn't he? But we'll see. Hey, the little stat that I looked at today after yesterday's stage, that'll interest you, Matt.
You love a good stat.
For anyone that wants to, or has aspirations of perhaps being competitive in a Grand Tour or something as difficult as the Giro d'Italia, then the top 7 riders on the stage yesterday. Now, that also includes Damiano Caruso, who is, by their standards, an absolute heavyweight. Okay, he's a beast of a man at all of 67 kilograms. Okay, which is not that heavy at all. But if you include him, the average weight of the top 7 on that stage was 61.8 kilograms. Take him out of it, it's a flat 61 kilograms for 6 of those top 7.
That is a fantastic stat.
They're jockeys, little guys.
Yeah.
Oh, they're getting to start at Flemington on Saturday. What that also highlights how brilliant the win was for Bradley Wiggins at the Tour de France. Bradley Wiggins is the tallest rider to ever win the Tour de France. I think when he won it, he was at around about 70 kilos. But when he was racing on the track, he was 78 or thereabouts. And it really speaks volumes of his performance to be able to win the Tour and get up those high mountains. That's a pretty good stat. I like it, Scotty.
Yeah, 61 kilos. Well, Brad, and that was extraordinary from him, isn't it? So he won the team pursuit at the 2008 Olympic Games. 10 months later, finished 4th at the Tour de France and was 8 kilograms lighter, I think it was. Yeah. So 8 kilograms of muscle mass, bit of fat there as well, perhaps, that he lost from the Olympics 10 months on to the Tour de France and finished 4th. The problem he had was the next year he tried the same diet, the same program for another 12 months, and it almost cooked him. Well, it did cook him. He wasn't very good in 2010. Then he had to go back to his original plan and then refocus, and eventually got his win. But to drop 8 kilograms as an elite rider on the track, to drop 8 kilos, in 10 months, that was extraordinary.
Yeah, big. Some news for you from a commentary perspective. No Robbie McEwen tonight. Robbie McEwen has abandoned ship, rightly so, because of the COVID situation in Melbourne. If he had have left it another day to go home, it would be 14 days in hotel quarantine, whereas getting on a flight today, he's able to go home and he just has to do a test, I think, and self-isolate until that test result comes back. And I think he said that his flight to get home today, one way to the Gold Coast, was around about $530 or something like that. Tomorrow, the same flight is $51.
Oh, knowing Robbie, he would have been filthy.
Can you imagine, you guys know him, can you imagine Robbie doing 14 days hotel quarantine?
Oh, he would have been at the counter counting out the coins, hey, like, for sure. For sure.
Mac is coming in. Okay, well, I've escaped Victoria a couple of times. I've been down there. Yeah, escape. So I've been down back in Bendigo a couple of times when they've called the lockdown and just shot out across the border. The last time I did it, I actually, because I went in from Tour Down Under, I didn't have a car with me in Bendigo, so it's easy just to jump in the car and drive back up north across the border. This time I didn't have a car, so I checked flights. Couldn't get any flights out of Melbourne. Couldn't get into even your flights from Melbourne to Canberra, Sydney, Ballina, Gold Coast, Brisbane. Couldn't get a flight anywhere. Checked flights from Bendigo to different small hubs. Couldn't get any flights. Everyone was just max exodus like Robbie, getting out of the state. Yeah. I eventually had a friend lend me his car, and I drove that across the border last minute. I think it was a couple of hours short of the border closing, and then about 6 weeks later or 5 weeks later, I had to drive back to Victoria just to drop the car back.
Oh, magnificent!
Nightmare.
Wow, it's just crazy how quickly it can change. So it's amazing. Yeah.
One other news story was obviously Remco Evenepoel pulling out with that crash with about 25K to go. It's pretty dicey, obviously, Keenan, when they run into those side guardrails. It's just like, bloody razor blades.
Yeah, we saw at the World Championships last year in the women's time trial, Chloe Dygert. When she hit it, it got a hold of her quad and ripped it open. It looked like a butterfly lamb just about to put on the barbecue. It was a horrible crash. So he was really lucky in many regards. What I found interesting about him yesterday is on the penultimate climb, he got dropped pretty early. And then all of a sudden, I thought, he's going to go on the gruppetto. He'll come in at 20 minutes. And then 5 minutes later, you see him just riding back to the peloton, no problem, as if it was just out on an easy training ride. It's easy to forget. The guy's 21. He's riding his first ever Grand Tour. You exclude all the injuries that he had from the crash at Giro Lombardia last year, it's still a really solid performance. And rightly so, all of Belgium is falling over themselves to get a piece of him with media action and so on. There's a lot to be excited about. I cannot wait until we see Remco, the Pog, Barnal, and maybe Yatesy all at their best on the start line at the Tour in a year or two.
Well, I saw the chopper footage of Bramati when he first crashed, and he must have seen the cuts, and he went back to his car. He goes, "Nah, he's out, he's done." And he got on his bike and rode off. Yeah,
but so Bramati was probably he was looking up like this situation, Scott. The athlete's sometimes not the best place to make the best decision that's in their best interest, and that's where you need a good sports director.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, typically the athlete will want to get to the finish and then reassess things. It might not have been the best case for him, especially now with the concussion rules. That's something that we never discussed. It was we saw that Tour of California a couple of years ago with Tom Scoynes. That was appalling what happened there. And he continued on. But that's something that the athletes typically, and I've been in situations like that where you're just trying to get back to the into the peloton to give yourself a chance to try and win something or continue for the next couple of days. And we see that typically with guys that get really sick as well, gastro, and do some pretty nasty things on the side of the road just to get through that stage to hopefully in 2 weeks' time, have a chance of winning something.
Just a flesh wound. Dan, I need to make a move and go into the studio.
I was going to say, you've got to go. Sorry.
Am I allowed to be excused from classroom, please, sir?
That's fine, mate. It's my bad. I've sent him the wrong link. Why do you?
Well, the viewers, Matt, the viewers, I want to know what whose jersey it is behind you.
It's Amanda Spratt's jersey, and it was a donation to my daughter from Amanda Spratt. My daughter saw Amanda Spratt at the National Championships when she finished second to Katrin Garfoot. She got dropped plenty of times, and then she managed to get back on and she finished second. A couple of weeks after that, we were up in Bright doing a ride with a few other kids that were a little bit older than my daughter. We were going up a hill, and they took off full out of a gate at the bottom of the hill. I just stayed with her, and she says, "Dad, I'm in gear one, but I'm Amanda Spratt." By the top of the hill, every other kid was off walking their bike, and she made it to the top. I just happened to tell Amanda Spratt that story, and then a month or so later, the following year, a month after she'd won the national championships, that jersey arrived in the mail with a note saying, "Keep chasing your dreams. I'll see you on the road."
How good's that?
Yeah, that's very good.
She's the best, isn't she?
Before I let you go, Keenan, predictions for the day. What do you think?
Peter Sagan wins. Bora Hansgrohe controlled the breakaway. It's a longest stage of the race, and I'm glad we're not commentating right from kilometre zero.
All right. Well, good luck with the filler.
The starts have been great. I know you've got to go, but the starts have been amazing for people to actually watch just how hard it is. Typically, if you go back to Tour de France days, you tune in, whatever it is, 80 Ks to go, 100 Ks to go, breaks up the road, X number of minutes. No one really understands how difficult. And the Giro this year has been incredibly difficult to make these breaks. It's taken so long. So it's great to see how that falls.
The first half hour, or sometimes it's been more than that, sometimes it's taken an hour. The first part is fantastic, seeing how the break forms. And there haven't been many easy breaks just roll up the road in this year's Giro d'Italia. I'd like to commentate the first part until that break gets established, and then perhaps have a little bit of a rest for an hour or so as things settle down. And the back end of the stage is going to be pretty good. You have a look at those little rollers towards the end. I'll be tuning in as I make my way into work, Dan, to see what Matt White says about the back end of today's stage.
All right, mate. And if you do use the stat about the kilograms, the riders in the top 7, you footnote Scooter.
Scooter says.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, good luck, mate.
Have a listen tonight. Is right.
Thanks, guys. Ciao.
All right. See you, mate. Matty Keenan, commentator extraordinaire. Now we'll go to a quick break with a word from our sponsors, BikeExchang, and then we'll chat with Henk Vogels. And then Whitey could appear at any time, depending if he gets the right link.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. BikeExchang, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at BikeExchang. Now, one other factor I didn't take into account, Scooter, with Whitey, is it could be the BlackBerry. The weather's getting warmer. It finally could have blown up.
Even before he got on, because I know it's heated up. It's heated up dramatically once he's been on, which is a bit of a shame.
And imagine how many messages would have been coming to that BlackBerry overnight. It's just constantly the dial would have gone through the roof, and it's just exploded. So it might not have been the link at all. So we'll keep you posted if he jumps on. Fingers crossed. Now, before we bring in Hank, we've got a question that's a good one from Pushkar in India. He says, as a strategist for BikeExchang, can you join hands with Bahrain to pile on the pressure on Ineos? Is it an acceptable norm within the peloton if two teams join hands? Also, salutes from India.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is acceptable. It doesn't, well, it does happen all the time. Like, if there are common interests, then yeah, absolutely. They'll have a bit of a chat behind the scenes and, try and set things up. Yeah.
Yep. We've got a heap of other comments that we'll run through now. Jason Cruz from the Maldives says, took the words out of my mouth, cracking stage. He's looking good. Obviously talking about Yatesy, of course, Wendy, superfan. Hi, Dan, Scott, Matt. So sad for Nick. Speedy recovery, Nick, and get well soon, John. Hang on, before we get to any more, we've got Matt White. He is alive. The BlackBerry's alive.
Are you gonna? I'm in the team car, so we're gonna have to make it quick before I melt down.
Right.
Start the clock.
Okay, mate. Well, first of all, congratulations. Huge day yesterday for the team. You must have been wrapped with Yatesy's ride.
I was, mate. I was very, very wrapped with Yatesy's ride, but there was a lot of grunt work that had to be done to soften up a lot of people from the engine room before that, and very, very proud of all the boys to set Yatesy up for what really did tip the race upside down.
Hey, can you take us through that? Because, the scenario was you had, as always, downhill start with multiple attacks. Once the break eventually did form, then it was over 5 minutes before you put the guys on the front. So what was the thought process and the conversations going on behind the scenes before you did make that command?
Yeah, so let's just say I wasn't really happy missing a 20-man break. For starters. What we want to do is, obviously, if you watch the coverage, Tanel nearly got across on the climb. It got within 20 seconds. DSM shut it down, and then we had let's pull up stumps and just let's get some bottles and let's assess the situation. Worked out, obviously we know who was in the breakaway. Dan Martin, as we spoke before the show, before the race yesterday, he was one of the favourites, but he had to win in the breakaway, and he was going to be the man to beat. So the two options we have there is, one, the race had gone on so far that a big chunk of the stage was already raced before that break had actually settled down. And then looking at the resources that I've got to play with there with the engine room, I spoke with Simon, how he was feeling. Simon gave us the old thumbs up. He was feeling ready to go. And we thought, why not? We know that a lot of people come out of a rest day in not a good place. If your leader's telling you that he's in a good place, I had the men to do it. And so off we went and used up Cam, Chris, and Michael Hepburn for about 60 kilometres, riding flat out to keep that break at a reasonable distance, to bring it down from 5.5 minutes. I wanted it at 3 minutes at the bottom of the climb. Those three did an excellent job in doing that. Then Callum Scottson took over for the first 5K of the Cat 1. Then Mikel Nieve did the next 10K. And then as we started the descent, all hell broke loose and the crash happened. And we had Mikel was involved in the crash. Schulze was involved in the crash. We lost time there. We lost 2 extra guys who could have helped chase. And that's, in the end of the day, that's what's cost us any chance. And no one was helping us. That cost us any chance of winning the stage. But that was only one part of yesterday's exercise. The other one was just to put heat on our rivals. And even though we come up short with winning the stage, we knew that there was a few guys having a rough day and we had to capitalise on it.
How are the tactics going to play out now? Whitey, we know you've got to go soon, but now that there's obviously some chinks in the Barnal armour.
Well, there is a chink. We've seen a chink, the first chink of the race. He's been the best bike rider here, and there's no doubt about that. No one has been able to drop him on a climb until yesterday afternoon. So, I don't know what's going through his head, but you know how we roll, Jonesy. We ain't.
You don't back down.
We ain't back down, matey.
That's right.
And we've got a 233 kilometre stage today to get through. It's going to be it's not as straightforward as it looks. The last 30K is a little bit similar to the circuit race we had in Slovenia. Similar roads, it's at winery roads, narrow, up and down. So we it's not a relaxing day. I've got a big black coffee in front of me now to get me through, but once the break goes, it'll be controlled by I would think Peter Sagan's ball because those guys, mate, we've Bookman out of the race. Their climbers are pretty cooked anyway because they've used them to help Sagan in other stages, and I think they'll throw the kitchen sink at trying to win the stage with Peter today.
So Sagan in the break. You said, what if Sagan gets in the break? Maybe then it definitely stays all the way.
That would be much nicer for us. It would probably be a lot more relaxed finish than if we're going for the win. But regardless, we've got to ride good position that last 30K because it is narrow, it's technical, and you've just got to mitigate risk as a GC team.
Last one, Whitey. You obviously had general belief that the podium was in reach. Is there a general belief now that you can win this thing?
Oh, look, I know it's cliche, but at the end of the day, we've got to crack those guys. I think we've got a really, really good buffer behind us to fourth place now. So we're only looking forward. We're not looking backwards. But we've been on the tail end of getting the Giro tipped upside down on us. 2016, 2018. Look at where Stefan Kruijswijk was in 2016 when he crashed. He had many people would have thought he had that Giro locked and loaded, and then we found ourselves in the jersey, then lost the jersey the next day. So anything can happen in this sport, and the belief has not waned at all that we're going to go all the way to Milan and give ourselves every chance.
Good stuff, mate. It's going to be an epic remaining 4 stages of the Giro, and we're behind you guys all the way. It's going to be yeah, just huge. So all the best today, mate. And hopefully everyone stays out of trouble and we'll tune in again tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, cheers. And look, we've already had one win for the day. The BlackBerry hasn't overheated.
Hey, there we go. And I'll send you the right link. I think I sent you a video for Dumb and Dumber instead of the link. It's a good video anyway. It's the one where he says, so you're telling me there's a chance. So anyway. Have a good one, mate.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Yeah. Have a good day.
Cheers, mate.
Take it easy.
Ciao.
Matt White, we are very lucky to have Whitey on the program to give us insights every day. Now, let's get to our guest, Scooter. Now, normally if he's the one that does the intros for our guests, what can you tell us about the great Henk Vogels?
Well, okay, Henk Vogal. So Western Australian, now lives in Queensland and also is a sports director for the ARA Pro Racing Sunshine Coast team, which is looking to change the way things are done within the teams here in Australia domestically, but a very long-time professional cyclist in the World Tour, raced across for an American team as well, and is commonly known as one of the hard men of Australian cycling. He was as tough as they come, and love to put it in the gutter and just smash pelotons to pieces. And Henk is, certainly one of the guys that did it the tough way, did it the hard way, and that's the only way he knew how to do it.
Well, he joins us now. Henk, sorry for having you waiting in the lobby there so long, mate. We're a bit of a dog's breakfast.
No, that's all right. It's good to hear Whitey have a chat, you know what I mean? Like catch up on what's happening, and always a good man to listen to, especially seeing he knows all the ins and outs of very special to get the insight right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So, no, it's good, mate, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, mate, it's a pleasure having you on the show. How have you found the Giro so far, mate?
Well, I mean, to be brutally honest with you guys, I pretty much get up and meet the boys for a ride and do some early rides. I generally catch up with the highlights packages in the morning and see the results on Cycling News and watch the a bit on GCN. So it's been a great Giro. I mean, for me, and I did the Tour of Spain twice, the Tour de France twice, the Giro twice. And the Giro is by far my favourite race. I love the small roads, the technicalities. There's always drama in the Giro. So I love the race so far. And, the Aussies been going well. BikeExchang doing really well. So, and last night's was awesome. I just wish he'd made a little bit more time, would have made it even more exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a cracker, hasn't it? Hey, what are some of the more special moments and memories that you have of your time at the Giro?
Oh, geez, there's a few. Well,
this is a PG show, mate.
Yeah. I'll try and keep it above board, fellas. Mate. But no, we had a really couple of special Giros with Robbie. I suppose the highlights were McEwen won 6 stages. So, I was his pilot. So Nick Gates and I piloted him to the last kilometre, which is an art in itself, as you guys know, being a lead-out person. Robbie never really needed that last 200 to 500. He just wanted to be put on Alessandro Petacchi's wheel. So, 2 years, 2 Giro, 6 stage wins for Robbie, and he always nicked off at the first rest day because he had a gutful and needed to train for the Tour de France, where he went on to win another 3 stages in both of those years. So he won 12 Grand Tour stages in those 2 years, which is just absolutely phenomenal. But, a couple of, standout memories for me of how many Aussies were in those Giros that year. Renshaw, Cook, Wilson, Van Hout, Wilson, Lancaster, Trent Wilson, that is, and Matt Wilson, Gatesy, myself, Robbie, Lancaster, Brownie. I mean, it was just, it was pretty
Alan
cool.
Davids?
It was like I'm not sure whether Albie was there or not. I think he ended up doing the Tour of the World to that year.
I reckon he told a funny story once about
Scott Davis was there.
I remember Albie saying that Nick Gates was one of the biggest smartasses. No, it must have been Matty Wilson. That's right. And he'd say stories about being in the Gruppetto, and he would just wind up all these Italian riders and show them no respect and just give them shit nonstop. They would have been hilarious moments, yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually his wingman in the gruppetto because the Italians they were allowed to hold on to team cars. They were holding on to commissaire motorbikes back in 2005, and they'd get away with it. They would fully get away with it. But I must tell one funny story. So Alan Piper was the DS back then, and it was actually his first gig with Lotto. And my brother came over because McEwen had some issues with his. Robbie had a broken back by that stage, I think, and which he did in Tour de France. So it was always Victor Popov, and in the Giro, my brother Leon, who was also an ex-professional cyclist, was the physio for the Giro. And I remember going up the Col de Finestra, and we were told not to hold on to cars. But I kind of pushed that rule a little bit. So I remember I took 37 bottles from my brother out the team car, and most of those had water squirting out of the top of the bottle while I was holding on to the bottle while Alan Piper was hitting the accelerator full noise. So he said, "You've just emptied a full esky of water bottles up the Col de Finestra, which is 30K, and the last 7, as you saw in the Col de Finestra, is on dirt." So... But I remember that was a cool little memory.
Hey, what was that? What was obviously Alan Piper's a good story. Like, he had success with Pogačar last year at the Tour and really orchestrated that entire victory. What was he like as a DS back in those early days?
Mate, he's fantastic. So it was he was new to it, but he was always I think he was more relaxed back then than he probably is now, because now he's head DS there, right? There's 6 DSs back in Lotto. David Amon was the team, 2005, 2006. And it was good because he's lived in Belgium. So it was a Belgian team. Most of the guys were Belgian. So he integrated us really well, even though Robbie speaks and was 2005, he was already fluent in Belgian, and I'm half Dutch, so I could understand the language. But Gates is as zock as you can get, obviously. So but he had a lot to do with Cadell and integrating him into teams, because Cadell was a stick in the mud. When he first came over, he couldn't handle telecom and the German way of life. And then he went across to the Belgians, and Alan was integral into trying to get him, to relax a little bit and have faith in your teammates. And because he's a bit introverted, and we love Cadell. I love Cadell, don't get me wrong, but he just kind of had to learn to fit in a little bit more. So Al really helped him with that in the earlier stages of his career. I literally did one race with Cadell because he's a mountain goat, and I'm certainly not a mountain goat, I can tell you. But we just creep through the gruppettos up on the climb, so that's why that story came out. But yeah, Al was fantastic, and a really good DS, relaxed, and I had a huge amount of respect for him because I didn't race with Al. I'm 48. I'm the same age as Whitey. I was in that same era, but Al Piper actually DS'd me in the 1993 milk race as an amateur with Patrick Jonker. He was like in a chip van in Belgium with his ex-wife selling chips at kermesses, and I remember Heiko Salzwerder ringing him up and saying, "Mate, get over in the milk race. We've got this really good young talented crew." And he came over, and I won a couple of stages, had the yellow jersey for a while, ended up getting crook and pulling out. But Al, I've always had a healthy respect for Al, even going back to 93. And then the next thing I know it, he's a DS back in 2005 and 2006. And that was his entry into the World Tour.
Yeah, it took a while.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah, how long it took him to go from, and the thing is with Al, that people that are fairly new to cycling don't understand, his time as an actual professional back in the day. But he was pushing the boundaries in terms of diets. No stories of at the end of the season he would say, because back then there were no chefs, right? So you go to a race and you just get served whatever food the hotel that you stayed at that day would dish up. So you didn't have the sort of luxury of having your own food and the nutritionists involved as we do these days. And he said in the off season, when most riders would like to have a pizza and a beer and a bit of a party, he said the off season was when he was at his most strict in terms of his dietary intake, because it was the only time that he could be. The rest of the year, you had to just eat whatever you could get at a race. So he would detox basically and do these juice fasting diets at the end of the season, no food for 5 days or something, just juice, just to get everything out of the body and then start afresh to build up towards the next year. He was way ahead of his time in terms of understanding nutrition, yet it took a long time for him to come back into the sport. But it is that general knowledge of understanding about high performance that he has brought to the World Tour since he's come back into it, which has been great.
Yeah, so you're saying he's the absolute opposite of me in the off season. So he ate really, really well, and I loved going down to the pub. So
did
you
have any offies? Did you have any offies, Hank, where you roll up to those early season races in January, and did they do skin folds in cycling?
Oh, thank God they didn't when I was there. Only with Heiko and the AIS they used to do skin folds.
The track days, mate. You would have been involved because people forget Hank started in the track program as well. He was part of the Team Pursuit squad in the early 90s, around the 92 Olympic program, and it was all skin folds every week back then.
Yeah, that's when you were good, because when the calipers come out, you had to take it easy on the French fries and the pies and sauce. But once you got into professional, I remember one year I used to race it. The skinniest I ever got was 79 kilos. So I watched the show earlier. I was listening to the podcast earlier, and you're saying that like that monster at 67 kilos. I was that at 12. When I was 12, I was 67 kilos. But I used to race it. I was good at 82 to 79. I used to fluctuate. And one year in Mercury, I turned up and I was 90 kilos. And we went to, that was 7 kilos over my race weight. We went to Tour de Langkawi, and we were there with a couple of sprinters. And I just got there day one. We sat down for the team meeting. I said, I'm riding this whole tour on the front. 10 days, 200K a day. I said, I don't care. We're just doing bunchy all day. Just put me on the front at kilometre 0 and I ride on the front. Anyway, I did that, came back 6 kilos lighter after the Tour de Langkawi, because it's 42 Celsius in Malaysia in February. And then hit the season really well, had a cracker of a year. But it's not real flash to put on that many kilos in the offie. I can tell you, it was almost like the big Jan or Rick, mate. He used to do the same, except I didn't ride as fast as him in July.
Now, Scotty gave you, in his intro, he said, you're a real hard man of cycling. Is that why you really enjoyed those races like Paris-Roubaix?
Oh, mate, that to me was real cycling. It's just raw emotion, that race. It has the history. I know people rave about it, but, it's, 125 years old, this race. And the team I was in, GAN, was just... they lived for it. The French classics was everything from Tour de France, Paris-Nice and Paris-Roubaix. That's all they cared about the whole year. They used to care about the French Cup. But for me, like Gilbert Duclos-Lassalle had won the race back in early 90s, and I got there in 1997. And in that photo right there, it's I'm off the front with Mark Walters. That's in just the section before Carrefour Les Arbres, and went through Carrefour Les Arbres. I had some real problem with the pedals I was riding and had to screw them all the way in. Anyway, the pedal came out, and on the Carrefour Les Arbres, when it was a dry day, as you can see there, so they were doing like 56, 58k an hour on the cobbles, and I could not get my foot back in. I ended up sitting 150 metres off the front group, with 14k to go, and held on for 10th. And that was 2 years in a row. 98, I actually landed in the front seat of the Rabobank car, which is the team I left 2 years before. I landed in Jan Raas's lap in the front when I hit him at 50 and slid down the side. Stuart O'Grady went in the back of the windscreen. He didn't smash it. He was just like fully lying flat sideways on the back of the car, and I went into the front seat of the car. And Jan Raas was obviously swearing at me in Dutch and carrying on with a stogie in his mouth and a glass of scotch. And I'm not joking, by the way. I'm not joking. Anyway, we end up sitting, both Stewie and I run 10th that year, 10th and 16th. But yeah, I loved it. The mud and the crashing and just riding a big gear. And like I said, I was a big guy, so I could ride the cobbles really well. And, being in... My dad was from Holland and everything. I used to watch these races as a kid. Dad used to get these VHS videos sent every classic. He would pay someone to send the Tour of Flanders, Ghent-Wevelgem, Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and Amstel Gold Race. We'd get one video a week come through, and we sit down and watch Edward Van Hoenhoek and Alan Piper and, Phil Anderson, who was my hero back in those days. So, and they were all really good at it. So, I just wanted to be a pro road bike rider from the age of about 14, I reckon.
You won't know this, Dan, but Henk's father, Henk Senior, was my team manager at the Junior World Championships in 1986. So my first trip to Europe was I was taken over there by Henk's dad. We went to the Netherlands for a 6-week training camp.
No, you did tell me that back in the days when we used to travel. I think he was a real hard man, wasn't he?
He was.
He was just like his son. Yeah, fully hard man. Hey, can you put up that photo again of Roubaix on the copy? Yeah, that one there.
Yeah.
And Henk and I come from the same era. He's a couple of years younger than me, but I also lived and rode Roubaix, but certainly raced in the category of race that we were allowed to not have to wear a helmet. And here's Henk on the cobblestones, one of the most dangerous races, perceived dangerous races on the planet, racing without a helmet. Hey, but that was just it, wasn't it, Henk? That's what you did. Everyone was doing the same thing.
Yeah, I reckon that was probably 97 and 98 was the last couple of years. I think Casatelli passed away in 98 or 99 in the Tour de France. And
there was 95.
So it was still, was that 95?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's just madness. I did wear a helmet that day. I started with a helmet. Obviously, 200 guys on the start line. It was cold at the start line. Pretty much had a cap underneath my helmet. As you can see, I've still got the arm warmers on. And then I just got the shits fully with the hat and helmet. And I'm like, I'm not putting my hand up to get my helmet. So I dished it to a lucky fan, brand new helmet. And then rode the last bit in with no helmet. But yeah, you look at the photos now and you just think that's just ridiculous, you know. I wouldn't go out for a ride with that helmet unless I was going on a cruiser down the beach with a missus, mate. So, but you know, it's just madness. Taking that off. Like we even started stages of the Tour de France, Stu and I, and we'd have our helmets in the back of the car, and 40k out, we'd put a hand up or jump on the radio. Yeah, I suppose we better put our helmets on for the punchy with Abdu Japarov Museu. You know, like he was a psycho, like an absolute psycho. And believe me, I know more than ever because I used to lead him out. I did the Vuelta in '95, and I had to lead him out for the first 12 days and all the intermediates and every sprint stage. And he was like, he wasn't much bigger than Caleb Ewan, so he used to go through these holes that just weren't there, and he'd like lift his head underneath people's elbows, and you just carnage everywhere. So, but anyway, getting back to that helmet story, 40k to go, throw your hand in the air and go, okay, yeah, we'll better put it on for the thing. But yeah, I'm glad those times have changed. Certainly for the young people now starting cycling, it's not a great look.
So given how much you love Roubaix, how special were those memories seeing Stewie win and then again Heyman in 2016? Because you were on the commentary team, or you were in the studio with Tomo when Heyman won particularly. Yeah,
there's no footage of it, but I was actually standing on top of the table when he was winning. And, you know, the very famous footage of Matthew Keenan and Robbie McEwen.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and obviously we can hear that in the studio, but Mike and I were the analysts, and we were, you know, they'd cross back to us. I may have even been in a moon boot because I've had fractures in my ankle, and I actually jumped up on the table and was screaming at him like, "Go, you good thing!" Like it was pretty special. And for me, all those, like Heyman was special, but also for me, Magnus Backstead was special. He was a teammate. Really good friend of mine, and also O'Grady, who I've known, and we did junior national championships together in 1990. For us to see all those guys win and knowing how special the race is for me, I brought a tear to my eye for all three of them. So yeah, it's amazing race.
Hey, you'll hear the name Backstead coming up again really soon now, because both Maggie's daughters in the pro peloton, and his youngest daughter is only 16, turning 17, so she's not pro yet, but she's part of the 6-day series stuff on the track. Pretty good little cyclocrosser as well. And Eleanor, his older daughter, I think she's 19, turning 20, and she rides for Trek Segafredo. So not in the men's peloton, but in the women's peloton, the Backstead name's on its way.
Yeah, I follow Maggie on Instagram, and most of it's about his two daughters or his bike fitting business or his own cycling business. But I do get to hear him also on some of the Eurosport coverage. But I do have another Giro story I've got to tell you guys.
Yes.
So
please do.
So I remember this stage. I think could have been the first or second stage Robbie won. It was 2005, guys. So you're going to have to excuse me if my details aren't completely correct. But so, like I said before, when I was leading Robbie out, Robbie just needed to be taken care of from about 15, 20k out. He would just make sure that Nick Gates and myself would just surf him down the outside of the bunch. So we'd do that numerous times, and I'm not joking when I say 50 to 60 times we'd have to move out and down the side. When Robbie was absolutely rooted, he said, "We're going through the centre," and that's when you were scared, because I had to bulldoze through the bunch to get him to the front. But most days the safest way is always to go down the outside and you surf him down the side of the bunch. Anyway, we come into the last like 1,800 meters, 2k to go. There's a roundabout, and there was a certain young sprinter in a Paneria kit who Scooter knows pretty well, by the name of Graham Brown, who had a penchant to dive bomb people in the corner and take risks that really he shouldn't be taking. Anyway, to this day, I've never seen anything like this, and this is no word of a lie. So I've got Nick in front of me. Nick may have been gone by then, because he normally did the grunt work from about 10k, and I started to do the bigger efforts near the final. Anyway, we're coming into this last roundabout where obviously everyone tries to go through. There's always 30 guys that try to go in 10 spots. So Brandy decided he was just going to dive bomb us anyway. I don't move easily. So I've held my line, and his wheel is up against like his handlebars touching my handlebars, and his front wheel is just sliding along the gutter. So he's decided, all right, there's only one way I can do this, and I'm just going to lean on Henk. And he actually leant over, and both of his wheels come off the ground. So he was lying on my back, and his bike was at a 45-degree angle in the air. Now, this is not the end of the story. He actually holds it up, and he doesn't crash, and he comes and he sprints, runs top 10.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
As much of a psycho Brownie he was an incredible bike handler.
Didn't you?
I never forget that as long as I live. How the hell he was lying on my back with his bike at a 45-degree angle, hands top 10. Bang.
Isn't there a famous story of you and Brownie at the bakery scooter? If he loves bringing it up all the time, isn't it?
That's why I bring this up.
No, sorry.
I was wondering if he's going to go there.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Didn't you put him into a bloody car or something?
Don't know.
We chopped his handlebars.
Don't know what you're talking about.
If he loves talking about it. Anyway, we go to the third umpire. I think you were at fault there, wasn't it?
No, but Brownie definitely was. He was a player in the Giro. He loved the Giro. He was always there. I can remember one stage in the Giro. Also, another story, fellas, if you want one. Where back in 2005, 2006, Pataki took 8 lead-out men for the Giro. There was not one GC rider. He had 8 guys who were all around the 75 to 85 kilo, and one of those guys, his lead-out man was Fabian Cancellara. He was part of that crew back then. He may have left, but he definitely was part of one of those lead-out trains in that era. Anyway, they all crashed one year. About 5 of them, Pataki was gone. So I found myself on the front with Robbie about 2k out, and I've got Robbie to the front, and Robbie's like, "Oh, we're way too front here." So he's like, "Go." So I've taken off. I've been caught. I've been caught 40 meters from the line. Robbie ends up winning the stage, and I remember there was about 6 Australians in the top 10 that day. Brownie, Cookie, Robbie, myself, Lancaster, Renshaw. I don't remember. It's stage 17 somewhere in 2005, 2006. Can't remember, but yeah, good memories with the Aussies in the Giro. I can tell you right now.
Did you guys always catch up in the village pre-start? Because the villages were massive back then. They're not as much anymore now because you've got the buses and riders like their coffee machines and stuff. But back then, the village would have been pumping, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Wilson sent me an actual picture. I work on a daily basis now with Matt Wilson up with the team. And he sent me a picture of, you know why it's also changed? Dan, because the riders used to read like Gazzetta dello Sport or L'Equipe. Now they just get on their phones. So, it's sad. Everyone used to come and have a coffee down.
You get
and have
the
a
free
chat. How you
phone
doing,
calls
mate?
as well. Couldn't you phone Australia from the village? Well, at the tour you could with the orange tent.
In the 90s, I reckon that could have been a possibility, but I think mid 2000s we all had mobiles by then. But yeah, but it was a lot more social back then, that's for sure. And everyone used to catch up in the village. Even guys you'd rather spit on in the race, you'd go and have a brew with them at the start. Like I can tell you, David Bramati and I had some real big fights in the Gruppetto. So he's one of those guys I'm talking about.
I'll chew
one of my
through
teammates. One of my teammates at that day.
I'll chew through some of the comments. We've had a few come in. General ones from when Keenan was on. Great Spratty story from Keenan. That's Ian Thomas. We've got Tim McLean says, "Hey guys, greeting from London. Loving the podcast. Do you fancy George Bennett for one of the remaining stages, Scooter?"
Yeah, sure. He's far. He's not contending like he was hoping to, or we were hoping him to, but he's in the mix again. So he's certainly going better than he was earlier in the Giro. So, hey, if he can, sacrifice another day, take it easy, and then light it up in one of the breakaways in one of these mountain stages, absolutely, he's a real chance.
Tybo says, "Is Nick Schultz okay? Will he ride another Grand Tour this year? He fractured his wrist, so they'll probably run him at the Vuelta or a bit later in the season."
Yeah, I think the Vuelta, mate. Yeah.
Annette says, "When Barnal won the Tour, he didn't have to complete the last two mountain stages with the avalanche and the abbreviated stage the next day." So
that is true. I actually think Geraint Thomas would have won the Tour that year that he won it, because they were lining it up. The stage where they had the avalanche, they were lining that up. He went on the attack, and that was all about setting up G for the final climb. Simon Yates was away with Barnal, and then he got the lead that day because they took the time from the top of the previous climb, and then he was able to defend that all the way to the end. But I actually think that the tactics were all about Geraint Thomas trying to win the Tour. It was a bit of a lucky break for Barnal. It's not to say that he's a lucky champion, because we know how good he is, and he's showing that again now. But I don't think that's relevant to where he's at now and whether he'll get through this. I think it's more about his back and his preparation coming in, all of that kind of stuff. And the back's the big question.
Yeah, Wendy Superfan, great to see. Hank, good on you, Wendy.
Yes.
Simon on YouTube says, "The odds are overwhelmingly favourable that Barnal will win. Everyone assumes he couldn't go with Yates, but could it have been that he chose not to?" Now, we've already debunked that with that famous photo, that it definitely wasn't a choice. Where is that photo?
Martinez trying to encourage him, because he was you got that photo right. So he's yelling at him, trying to encourage him, being a great teammate, seriously great teammate. But there were moments before that where he was actually losing the wheel of his teammate. So it wasn't like he was comfortably just cruising along, and Martinez was just yelling out, "What's the time? What are we having for dinner?" They were desperate. They were desperate moments.
Yep. Simon Knowles says, "What a ripper of a bloke Whitey is on the start line of a Grand Tour, and yet still has time to talk to us mere mortals." We've got another one. PT says, "Supporting Yates from England, but Barnal didn't lose that much time yesterday as Yates did in 2018. So all to play for." We've got another one related to you, Hank, from Chris Eldy. Says, "Great seeing ARA doing so well. USC is one of the most innovative unis in Australia." Why would they say that? What's going
on? The program we have at USC is we've pretty much got like what the AIS had back in the 90s when it was good. Our athletes, we've got men's. I think we're the only Australian team to have a men's and women's program, apart from BikeExchang. We have a high performance, strength and conditioning coach. We've got a 50-meter pool. We've got recovery pools. We've got a service course. We've got testing. We've got DEXA machines. So we've just got everything so that the bike riders have as much recovery as they want, and they're also 90% of the athletes, apart from the ones that are doing the Olympic Games, which is Maid Plouffe, are studying at USC. So as you know, 99.9% of cyclists don't go on to be World Tour riders. So they've got to have something to fall back on after that. So not only do they get the best facilities in Australia to train with, they're also taking care of their life after cycling, which we know is about a 10-year period. So it's quite short in their life. So, that's what he's talking about.
Scooter?
Yeah, and USC, so that's the University of Sunshine Coast. What you guys are doing, what I really like about it is that, we were both involved with the Drapac team, different times post-racing career for both of us. And it was kind of that holistic approach that Michael Drapac was always really pushing.
Yeah.
Once that team went into the Pro Continental status and then combined with, with what is now the EF team as a World Tour team, that was really, really difficult to actually have that holistic approach, because as a pro team, you have to ride races to win them. Otherwise, you don't get sponsorship. So it's a very different scenario. But what they didn't do at the level below that, when they were first coming through, is what you're now doing, which is directly connecting with the University of Sunshine Coast and actually having a program that works, directly with the athletes, so they are getting an education directly parallel with their cycling career. I think you guys have nailed it, and this is the right approach going forward. So well done.
Yeah, no, I think that all the staff that are there, Matt Wilson, Ben Kirsten, and myself have been through some really horrific programs in our time, where the welfare of the cyclist and the athlete has never been paramount. So we wanted to change that, and that's been the real, pushing factor of this team, that they're taken and respected as adults, and that they're it's not all about results, and sometimes it is for sponsorship, but and you try and push that as much as you can, but that's not the main thing. We're trying to mentor them to be great humans, really, nothing else.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We've got some breaking news because the Giro has started. Annette has got a sharp eye. She says Barnal stretching his back as they roll through the neutral zone. Looks like he might be a bit stiff.
He's cracked. That's it.
I reckon you're pretty stiff after doing a few Ks on the bike in that one position. You'd be pretty stiff after nearly 3 weeks already, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it might have something
My
to do with
neck's
it.
sore just sitting here, mate.
Oh,
The Will
I've got
Wizard.
a sore back sitting here listening to you guys.
The Will Wizard says too late today, boys. Giro stage is in the neutral zone. Now, what would you rather watch? The riders putting out on the neutral zone or Henk Vogel's classic Giro stories? I know what I'd be doing.
The neutral, mate, nothing happens until the neutral flag drops. Who cares?
Stay on the detour, mate, for at least another half hour. Great Divide says, Hank, why do you think WA produces so many quality riders? Durbo, Cam Meyer, Jack Haig, Jai Hindley, etc.
I think that every state produces fantastic bike riders. I think sometimes when you get a good bunch together, they make them like those guys. I'm not sure whether Jai trains with those guys, but or Ben O'Connor for that matter. But I know that Durbo and Meyer and Freeberg and those guys, they all train together and they go out in the Darling Ranges out in the hills and do stupid kilometres in the summer. And nowadays, heat training is as effective as altitude. So go and park yourself over in Perth in December and see how hot it is over there. And that's why they're stomping in January, because, I think they ride together in a big bunch. And I think that's would be the same for any state, really. The West Australians obviously have had a good period of time where they've been fantastic. Right now we've got Storer, O'Connor, Hindley, Meyer, Durbridge. There's probably more that I've forgotten about.
Rob Power, another one.
Yeah, Power's another fantastic young kid who's obviously very, very good. They're going through a bit of a purple patch now, but I think, I think when you've got guys that are in the same kind of level, they bring each other up, and especially if they're in the same state and training together, that's also handy. And that's why it's so great to have an Australian team, in the World Tour. I think they bring them up, and I know they're not all on BikeExchang, but yeah, it does help when they're, their peers are around them.
Talk about
Dan, the other one. Sorry, mate. The other one that I've noticed as well, just even with some of the bunches that I ride with, and the Bendigo bunch I've mentioned a bunch of times. Jack Haig, Chris Hamilton, Zach Dempster that have come through there as well. Success breeds success, and if you go back to Henk and our time when we were first starting out, Europe seemed like this mystical place. And the professionals that were winning at the World Tour level, as it was, whatever it was called back then, they were like these superhuman beings. But if you've got someone that's in your training bunch that is a part of the World Tour that's having success in Europe, and then every summer they come back and you do the local training ride, the Pappas ride, wherever it is in Perth, and then all of a sudden there's this direct connection to the best in the world. And all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I could do that as well. If he can, why can't I?
Yeah.
Because
they pick each other's brain as well. So, how did you bloody win the world title, or how did you get up and ride in the front of the classics? I did this and this and this, and they feed off each other. You're so right, Scooter. I totally agree, mate. I
shouldn't have said that the Giro started, because I'm looking at the live viewers tuning in, and it's plummeted harder than cryptocurrency. We've lost about 40.
Hey, but I've got two things for you, Dan. So, we spoke about the weights of bikes and rim brakes versus disc brakes throughout this Giro, and I said how the Pinarello bikes, which are beautiful bikes, fantastic machines, but their disc brake version, Ineos do not use because they're too heavy, 8.4 kilograms, as we had one of our viewers tell us. He just built one up recently. And Fausto Pinarello, Mr. Pinarello, rocked up at the Giro yesterday, I think, or the day before, on a new prototype bike no one had seen. And it was a disc brake bike. Saw that on the news. So it might be down close to the 6.8 kilogram weight limit. So maybe Ineos will make a bike change at some point. And I don't know if you saw this, but we almost had a disqualification last night. And the leader of the King of the Mountains competition, Geoffroy Bouchard, went to the front of the breakaway, and just in a slight brain fade moment, with the new rules that have come in, went to put his hands over the front of the handlebars in that sort of fake time trial position. And as he did that, remembered, and then just slid them back onto the brakes again. It was a very smooth kind of operator moment, but he almost got himself DQ'd.
That was a full piss take, I reckon. I reckon he knew the camera was there and he was doing that.
I hope so, because he was that close to getting DQ'd. Imagine that, getting thrown off the race for something as ridiculous as that.
Personally, I think that's the most ridiculous rule ever made. But anyway, I'm not the UCI. Well, you just saw those photos of me in Roubaix, right, where I've got the Spinacci bars on. They're fantastic, those things, mate. I lived on those things. They're like 4 to 6k an hour faster on the flat, and that's no bullshit. I can tell you right now, they were so good. And
when did they ban those? What year?
Oh, mate, they banned them in '98. So standard UCI, backward thinking,
party pooper.
Yeah, absolute.
I used to have ones like that on my paper round bike, but they were like the bullhorns. You know, the ones you used to get on the sides.
On the outside,
of you really like when you had to get the Sunday age.
You can still get them.
Yeah, they were perfectly positioned when you're actually out mountain biking in the woods to hook onto any little tree that you went past and just rip you straight off the bars. Yeah.
Another comment: Ian Thomas should get Brownie on to get his side of those stories.
Yeah,
no worries.
Yeah,
could.
Yep.
So
I'm on a monthly
deny
chat.
it.
I'm on a monthly chat. Henk, I don't know if you know this, but Brownie himself actually put together a WhatsApp group with basically, not just trackies, but
people that hooked him into a car at the bakery.
anyone he's knocked off has been part of this group. So I'm part of that group, and we've had that conversation. We were young and stupid, and we've all moved on. But I'm sure Brownie'd love to come on and have a chat.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, well, he didn't knock me off, and I didn't knock him off. I still reckon it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life, how he actually stayed up there. He was an incredible bike
BMX skills, mate. Former BMX rider.
Not as good as Robbie. Not as good. I'll say that about Robbie. I'll say a lot of things about Robbie, but not tonight. But McEwen was one of the most amazing bike handlers I've ever seen. 100%.
One thing I do want to ask you about, Hank, was we talk a lot about Green Edge, being the first World Tour team and so forth. But looking back now, how disappointing is that whole Pegasus story, given that if it all went through and they could have been on the cusp of being the first. And, like Swain Tuff was part of it, Daryl Limpy, Robbie.
Christian Kanies.
Yeah. I mean, looking back at that period, I mean, I don't like to dig up old skulls when it comes to, disappointing moments. But looking back now, I mean, to know that it was close and just fell over, I mean, what are the sort of emotions that come out when you talk about that?
Well, when you first said Pegasus, I nearly spewed. But But
fair enough.
No, I must admit though, like I don't think of that era as a bad time, and the end happened badly, and a lot of people were out of pocket, including myself, for a lot of money, right? But we won a lot of bike races. So V Australia, Jonathan Cantwell won 25 races. I think we won 220 races in 2 years. It was pretty special. It was a special team to be part of. In the end, it went pear-shaped because, you know, Chris White just completely stuffed everything up. And that's all I'll say on that point. But, yeah, I have great memories of really good results with a great bunch of people who, you know, lived and breathed and died for each other pretty much. And we're the most successful team for a lot, and obviously not World Tour, but we were right under winning everything in the United States and everything in Australia that, you know, we pinned a number on, we won. So it was a good time, and it could have been pretty special. And yeah, I was sad to not be. I think my career ended just before Green Edge started, so I was pretty disappointed not to be part of that because they were all my mates, you know. So, but I went that, you know, DS in that direction, and we were successful, but never kind of made it to the top step. But there's always time, right? And we're trying to, you know, we're always trying to help out in grassroots, but you never know what could happen in the future with, you know, this team or anyone else. So, but Jerry's doing an amazing job. BikeExchang shit. They're just, I just love watching and hearing everything about them.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Scooter, before we wrap things up?
Well, after the 2000 Olympics, we almost had a deal with Colonial Mutual as a company they were talking $17 million back in 2000.
Which is about 50 now.
Yeah, to put together a pro team. And they just purchased a British company. So when the team the plan was when they raced in Europe, they would be known under the British company's name. And within the next couple of months, that company went downhill really fast, the British Connection. And it cost them a crap load of money. So they pulled out of any chance of doing a pro team. So way back then, there was the possibility of putting together a team as well. But, you know, for Henk and you guys at ARA, you're only, you know, one connection, one networking opportunity away from, you know, the possibility of having the kind of money to take the team to the next level. So keep plugging away. You're doing the right thing anyway, looking after the next generation of riders. Yeah. There'll be plenty that have come through your program in the future and into the pro ranks.
Yeah, I mean, we had two go this year, Alistair McKellar and Taj Jones to Israel, and you know, that's the goal, just to get these guys to that next level. And it's not the most important goal, obviously, because we talked about the education side and the mentoring. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly enough talent, and especially in the other teams, Inform and Bridge Lane and Oliver's and ARA seem to be the bigger teams. And you know, without that grassroots cycling, we just don't have that next crew coming through. Don't have the O'Connors and the Powers and the Hindleys and the Myers, and you know, so yeah, we'll just keep boxing on, and you know, I enjoy it. I like taking care of the young guys, and you know, really trying to toughen them up, obviously, and make them into men, and to win bike races in the future.
Well, the rate COVID's going, every bastard's moving to Queensland anyway, so you'll have the pick of the bunch.
Yeah,
over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
but you notice how, you know, he lives in Queensland, the team's based in Queensland with the Sunshine Coast, etc. But he's from Perth, and those last list of riders you just mentioned are all from Western Australia. A little bit biased there, I think, Henk.
Well, there's only one Queenslander, and he's already won a couple of stages of the Giro this year, so he gets talked about enough, doesn't he, old Caleb? So, yeah. No, our program's national up here, so we've got riders from everywhere. Cam Scott's and Adelaide. You know, got a couple of guys from Western Australia, Barrett and Stenning and Wiggins, and then a couple of boys from Canberra, the Ricey boys. So yeah, it's a national program really. So yeah.
Oh, and with the women's side, Anya Lowe from Tassie and Ruby Roseman Gannon, who was an absolute gun. So Com Games next year perhaps, and definitely World Tour level.
She should be I reckon if she actually started any World Tour race, she would win a stage of any stage race right now, 100%. She is an absolute gun, and she's going to be the next big name in women's cycling. I can tell you right now. She's just getting started, and she's still on the track. So imagine when she gets serious to go over and race on the road with the girls. I mean, she's going to absolutely kill them. So it's exciting time for the ladies team too.
All right, I've got one more fan question, one more comment before we go. Mitchell says, why do you think there is not any more Pro Conti teams in Australia, Henk?
Well, a Pro Continental team, bare minimum cost is 1.5 million to operate, Australian dollars, and that's bare bones, because you have to pay every rider 44,700 Australian dollars or euro, I'm not sure, and you have to pay every staff member that, and you could have a minimum of 17 riders. So work that out as salaries, and then you've got to have a service course, and you've got to pay a third up front to the UCI. So then you've got to run the rest for the bank guarantee. It's an expensive exercise. So, you know, our budgets aren't close to that. We hope that they can one day, and every Australian team would love to be Pro Continental, because you'd possibly even get a start in Tour Down Under and race in Europe and racing like Gent Wevelgem and these other second tier. Well, Gent Wevelgem's World Tour now, I think. But yeah, it's a very expensive exercise. So that would be the plan for us moving forward. But yeah, at the moment we're just taking care of grassroots.
And then that step up to Pro Conti as well, Dan. And shout out, say good day to you, Mitch Mulhern, who former champion on the track as well, a bit of a road rider also, but also part of the national track program only a couple of years ago.
Good bike rider.
So good question, and good bike rider. But the Pro Conti status for an Australian team, if you're going to be based in Australia at Pro Conti level, there's not many races that you get to do. You have to go and be based in Europe anyway. So therefore, the team would need to have a reason to be based in Europe, you know, European sponsorship or whatever it may be, or an Australian sponsor that just wants to market and promote in Europe. So one of the most famous, say, American teams was Motorola, which was, you know, Lance Armstrong when he first came through, and Phil Anderson was there. Motorola as a company was saturated within North America, selling mobile phones and accessories. They wanted to hit Europe. So they sponsored a team that went to Europe. And when that sponsorship finished, they weren't disgruntled they loved the team. They thought they had great results, but as a business decision, they felt that they had reached enough of what they wanted to do in their target audience within Europe, and they were just going to then refocus their direction as a company into another marketing opportunity. So then they pulled out of the sponsorship. That team didn't come back. Jim Okowitz came back with other teams, but that team couldn't find another sponsor. And that's always been the problem, even with the Green Edge crew. Jerry Ryan continues to bankroll that team, but it's all every time they have a sponsor change, it's another one of Jerry's companies that is the major sponsor. So even a team as successful as that is still struggling to get, you know, the kind of partnership that that they deserve with all the results that they've had. And to be honest, cycling at World Tour level, if you're winning the races that the BikeExchang guys are, it's good value for money. You know, compared to European
cheap.
soccer, football, etc. It's actually cheap.
Yeah, and you'd have to set up in Europe. Pretty much, you'd have to have a full service course in Europe, so you couldn't base it out of Australia, and then you don't really have the grassroots. But yeah, it's the natural progression, and you'd love to for us to be able to do it, or any other team. And even like, we're a continental based team, so we can race in Europe, but we're not going anywhere with this virus.
Hey, Mitchell, he liked the shout outs. He's giving you the thumbs up. So good on you, Mitch. Now, I want to finish with this. Now, James B, he's excited. He's on YouTube. He's going, hey, guys, what did I miss? And then he's backed it up. Now, James, when you do make a comment, it's research is key, mate. He's come up with this cracker. As much as I like BikeExchang, I don't really want to see Barnal implode. But if he does, I hope it's Simon Yates who picks up the pieces. Mate,
is there another twin? Is there another twin out there somewhere?
Yeah, he's going to sub out for the last 4 days.
Yeah.
So I like your enthusiasm, James, but that was just a slip of the fingers, mate. So bounce back tomorrow and come up with some cracking questions. All right, that's been a massive show. Hey, Hank, thanks for coming on, mate. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the old Giro yarns. Scooter, great work as always. Have you got any final little tidbits or little stats on where the riders are going today, or you screwed them all up?
Well, they go through Cremona, which is very close to Montechiari, which is the home of Italian track cycling. It's the only indoor velodrome that Italy has, which is incredible. You think of their cycling history, and it's only in the last, I think, 10 years that they built that particular velodrome. All the other tracks they had were outdoor tracks, and it's very close. Cremona, which is where the intermediate sprint is very close to, it's only like literally 5 k's away from where the Italian national coach now lives. And tomorrow's stage starts in his place of birth. So Marco Villa, who was 2 times World Madison champion, Olympic bronze medalist at the Sydney Olympic Games with Silvio Martinello. So they're going past through some track territory, and that's the kind of stage it is today. It's flatlands to the last couple of lumps at the end. The sprinters, Sagan's already been mentioned. The only sprinters that are left in the race, Sagan, Cimolai, Gaviria, Viviani, and you could possibly throw in Nikias Arndt because it is a pretty challenging sort of finish for them. And Cimolai might be the one that kind of will push Sagan to the limit. I think Gaviria's slightly under, hasn't seemed to have it. Viviani should win a stage.
He should be.
He just hasn't got it, right? He hasn't got it at the moment. So Cimolai or I think Nikias Arndt might give Sagan a bit of a run for his money today.
All right. What do you reckon, Hank?
Nah, you're right on the money there, Scooter. Yep. There's not really anyone else that you put up there. Maybe the break stays away. Who knows?
Yeah.
If the breaks goes.
Well, tomorrow's a big one. We really just want to get through this one and just start previewing these last 2 massive mountain stages. That's when we get really excited. Whitey could tip either from super excited to that sort of real nervous pre-start energy. So it's going to be interesting. So fingers crossed. Hey, as we always say, youtube.com/the Detour podcast. Tell your mates, like, share, subscribe. Thanks for all your support. Thanks again, Hank. Thanks, Scooter. And we'll see you tomorrow. Iffy, get well, mate. We're thinking of you. And hopefully you're back on the show tomorrow night. See you then.
See you guys.